In a video I released on Sunday, I went through 10 questions that you guys were asking to Emil Pagurulo and Will Shen over at Bethesda Game Studios in their official Discord channel. During that recording session, I actually went through 20 questions and I only showcased the first 10 in that video, so here are the other 10. If you haven't watched that part, go ahead and do so, but for the rest of you, I hope you enjoy. General Cupcake, if you break the law and get caught, are you just killed, or will there be an in-game prison that you get taken to and have to escape from / pay your way out? Firmly do not believe the prison system will work too differently than what we've seen in past Bethesda Game Studios games. It's going to depend on the level of bounty that you have. If it's incredibly high and you've committed a lot of crimes, they will just shoot you on sight and try to kill you. If it's a minor crime, you stole a single item, even when you're in space, we know that you can communicate and talk between spaceships, and you can sort of hail ships that way, so they'll probably try to arrest you first, then you'll be taken to prison. I fully doubt that unless you're dealing with the Crimson Fleet, that the United Colony's rule of thumb is shoot any criminal on sight, no matter the demeanor.
Welcome to UC Space. Maintain your current course while we scan your ship's cargo. Scan complete. You are cleared for landing at New Atlantis.
Adrenaline asks, at the end of the direct there's a quick nod to powers being used by the player. Completely understand if it will spoil the narrative, but can you confirm if this is something we'll be able to control as part of the game, or is simply a narrative device? The common theory is that they will work very similar to Dragon Shouts in Skyrim, but of course different and more unique powers, hopefully, or more varied powers. That's probably how it would be. Absolutely ridiculous if they end the Starfield direct, hey, look at this super cool thing, and you can only do it for a narrative reason that makes absolutely zero sense. And it'll probably be pretty cool to see what chaos can ensue and how NPCs will react when we use those powers. That I actually think I'm looking forward to just as much. Elusive F asks, will Outpost building be late game, or is this something you can do right off the bat? Similar to Fallout 4, the way it will, and even Fallout 76, the way it will most likely work is that at a certain point you'll have some type of main quest that says, hey, go off and build this small outpost, and you do the very basics of outpost building.
Dancing, walking, rearranging furniture. Babs is shopping. I let the bird out of the cage.
And then after that, it will no longer be required for anything you want to do. And then at that point, it's really up to you. Spaceship crafting, because it's very expensive, you'll need a lot of money for. Todd Howard explicitly said is a late game thing. I've always personally found settlement building to be something you do intermittently throughout your playthrough. You have the resources, go back and upgrade your settlement a little bit. Go scavenge, find supplies, come back, upgrade, rinse, and repeat. Outpost building, keep in mind too, is probably a lot more resource intensive versus currency intensive, the way that shipbuilding would be, which is why that's more of an endgame piece. Versus settlements where you're scavenging iron and nickel and whatever other aluminum, whatever resources you find all the time. D2DFE asks, is Earth possible to explore? Wondering about it since we didn't see it in the direct or any mentions about it. We actually do see Earth during the direct. It's almost certainly the St. Louis Arch that we get to see, as well as the rocket ship that's there is probably an old spaceport on Earth itself. It's been destroyed, and Will Shen explicitly mentions that
you'll be being sent there on a mission from Constellation to discover the mysteries of the artifacts, and you'll get in contact with the question of what happened to Earth.
And you can go off and explore it for yourself. Animus asks, will there be leadership opportunities in factions? What we know so far is that you can't become the leader of every single faction in the game like you could, for example, Skyrim.
Right, you're influencing the direction of where this faction is going to go. You don't necessarily end up as the head of every single faction of the game. But, you know, obviously all the major characters in every faction questline will be reflecting on your choices.
As for becoming the leader, there's probably some of them you can. I don't think Bethesda will want to completely take that away, but most of them probably not. Probably the major players, like the Crimson Fleet, for example, might not be the head honcho over there. I could see some of the small, like something like Ryujin Industries, if we could join them, if they're a playable faction, then maybe you could become the new CEO after a while, something like that, but not the major players, the Freestar Collective, the United Colonies, Crimson Fleet. Coming from JJWH, Can you build / own a space station? Also, are there DLC plans like previous Bethesda games? Yes, there are DLC plans. That's what Shattered Space. That's it. That's an expansion that's already coming, and there will absolutely be more. As for building your own space outposts, that's something that would have to come later as part of DLC. It follows the same logic that I had when people were asking whether or not land vehicles would be in the game. The answer I always provided was probably not. That seems like a staple feature that they'd want to show off to get players excited. If they didn't show it off at the Direct, it's probably not in the game. And so something like building an entire space outpost feels like it would follow that same logic. Turned out to be right about the land vehicles. Probably want to bank on the side if I'm right about this one too. Now, I will say Shattered Space in particular gives me some Fallout-esque vibes, with obviously a shattered world. And of course, a big theme of Fallout, especially Fallout 4, is rebuilding, where the settlement system came into play. If not in Shattered Space, then 1000% it could be like some of the Fallout expansions. It might be smaller in size, cheaper in price, but similar to Automaton, where you were able to build your own robots, or the Vault Tech Workshop DLC, where you could build your own vaults. But as of launch, no. Caballo, Priest of the S... Sorry, the name got cut off. They ask, is there enough quest content on a single planet to not have to leave? Of course, I assume most quests require you to leave the planet, but could I play a character comfortably on a single planet? Probably not. I would be incredibly surprised if you can do an entire character with one planet. It just does not fit the theme of Starfield. It doesn't fit the direction that Starfield is presumably going in, where it's all about discovery, finding what's out there. Certainly the main quest, of course, is going to take you all over the place. The faction quests are going to take you all over the place. The one exception I will say is if you're content playing an entire character where they only do quest lines that you can find in a city like New Atlantis or Aquila, the bigger cities in the game, those you can probably start and finish an entire quest without having to leave the city or without leaving the planet. But the majority of them, I assume, are going to take you somewhere else, especially with the procedural content system that dynamically places locations in different areas. That might work very similarly. So unfortunately, you're going to be getting in your ship, but that shouldn't be a bad thing in the space game. Kajit asks, this one wonders if drugs will have visual effects to make it trippy, or just stat buffs / debuffs. This actually already is seemingly confirmed, I think, again from the ESRB rating, where they said taking a drug like Aurora will have visual effects on the screen to simulate that you're under the influence of a substance. So there you go. If that's what you're looking for, it's there. If it's not to your liking, guarantee you mods will change the effects, but it's definitely in the game. Anatnom asks, will there be difficulties to choose from before playing, or will it be set difficulty for all? Like I said for a previous question involving death in the game, almost certainly will function the same way that past Bethesda games have done, which is you do have different difficulties that you can toggle in between. The better question I would ask in this circumstance is, how will the difficulty work in the game? It's something that I've always had a bit of a problem with, where difficulty typically determines the enemy's health, the enemy's resistance to damage, and the damage output that they do to you, and those all work with various multipliers. So it's not really adding difficulty to the game per se, it's just making the enemies more bullet spongy while making you more vulnerable. I think there's definitely better ways to handle difficulty in RPG games than that, and so I would prefer if difficulty changed, yes, the damage that they take, or that you take, but also the damage that they take as well, to make it more of a hardcore experience. That would be more interesting to me overall. I wanted to end on this one. It's genuinely my favorite question that was asked, because there's going to be so many people that are hopping into a Bethesda Game Studios game for the first time because they just love sci-fi. Maybe fantasy, post-apocalyptic didn't appeal to them too much, but sci-fi absolutely does. So I wanted to end on this one. And Young asks, for those of us who have never played a BGS game and will be starting with Starfield, what information should we know that will make the experience more impactful right from the start? And to add to that, how deep should we go into creating our character's backstory before we start the game? Should we have our character's backstory fleshed out like in a D&D campaign, or will that come as we play? Phenomenally written, great question. And to answer the first part, what information, what knowledge should you have going into the game? I'd say the most important thing, you can actually check out my last video that I made on Starfield, but it's to play the game however you want to play. There's no correct way to play a Bethesda Game Studios game. If you feel like you're playing it wrong, you're probably not, so just enjoy it however you find it enjoyable. Do the things you think are most fun. If you like fast traveling everywhere, do that. Don't feel obligated never to use the fast travel system. If you want to kill every single person you can, do that. If you want to use the worst weapons in the game and keep all your stats at 0 because you like the challenge, it doesn't matter. It's your experience. The beautiful thing about Starfield as far as knowledge goes is it's brand new universe for absolutely everybody. It's not like Elder Scrolls where there's decades of lore that has been created, refined, changed, and all of that stuff. It's brand new for every single player to hop into the settled systems, including longtime BGS fans such as myself. As for creating a character, if you enjoy role-playing and you enjoy putting that depth and background into them, go for it. Again, it ties back to what I just said. Play your way. If you want the character to evolve and grow and change and really be fleshed out as you go through your story, that's perfectly fine too. You can define them based on your experiences. There's nothing wrong with that. I will say, for me personally, I always like my character to have a particular flaw. So I might role play a certain background where they're really good, for example, at doing crafting skills or engineering type skills or anything revolving around building, but their charisma is at absolute 0. I enjoy that part of the game. And then, of course, over time, I might improve it if it seems worthwhile or if it seems friendly to my character's story. But there you go. I like playing with a flaw. Maybe some of you could try doing that for the first time. You might really enjoy it. So there you have it, 20 questions. Some pretty reasonable assumptions and speculation on most of these, I personally believe. But if you disagree, let me know in the comment section below. Of course, the official event is taking place on August 16th with Will Shen and Emil Pagliarulo, so look forward to that. And I do hope they take some of the better questions that are here, the things that if you've been following Starfield, you genuinely wouldn't know, not the easy questions that have actually already been answered somewhere. So I'm looking forward to this overall. Glad Bethesda is doing it. Again, let me know down in the comment section below what you're feeling. And as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.